All right, guys, we are at the Fabridam, Sunbury, Pennsylvania. You guys may remember this. It was the location back in August where anglers were cited for fishing too close to the dam during a Kayak Adventure Series event in early August. Ultimately disqualified from that event, as well as having images taken by an angler during the event of anglers up here at the dam. The Kayak Adventure Series then turned those images over to the law enforcement, PBFC, I guess, and subsequently those anglers were cited for, based on the photograph, of allegedly fishing too close to the dam. However, they were not ticketed until well after Labor Day in September. These are the conditions today in October. Obviously, some of the dam has been let out. It is an inflatable dam, in case you're unfamiliar with the Fabridam. That is an inflatable dam, and you can see in the middle out there where you're going to have boil, okay? Because that's where the river above the dam is coming into the river, okay? That boil itself is probably a foot, 12 inches from the actual crown, okay? Just to give you a little perspective. I am standing based on a rangefinder, okay? I'm going to get this back to normal imaging so we can have realism here. I'm standing approximately 36 yards based on a rangefinder from the dam. 36 yards. 36 yards. Mrs. Johnson in elementary school would have told you that that is 100 feet. Okay? 36 yards, 100 feet. Okay? So 3 first downs, almost 4 first downs for all you NFL guys. And so you can see from where I am, it's this rock line, the second rock line exposed here, that begins the danger zone area. And there is a sign posted right there. Okay, there also is a sign posted on the crown, the first 2 crowns on the Sunbury side, alerting anglers to the 100-foot safety zone. Okay, so to give that in a little bit of my perspective, when you're here in August, the river was a little over 2 feet. Most of this rock was underwater. Okay, just underwater, not much. Water was basically on top of this rock line right here. Okay. However, what a lot of people don't know, and we see all the way out there where the birds are, there's actually a stake that's about 34 inches. Okay, that most guys who fish here, if you fish here a lot, you would know about that. It's typically in the water adjacent to that island, which is right beyond there. There's an island right there. Okay. Now, at the tip of that island was exactly where the anglers during the Kayak Adventure Series were fishing. So they were fishing well beyond this rock line right here, which, as I stated, is about 120 feet in reality, you know, the whole rock line from the actual Fabridam. Now, the Fabridam obviously doesn't have any water, doesn't have a boil over here, okay, and the 100-foot zone is based off from where the boil is. The boil on the day that the Kayak Adventure Series was fishing, and the day in which allegedly the photograph was taken, the boil itself was about 12 to 14 inches from the Fabridam. Okay, so I have backed up to 120 feet. Okay, just to give a perspective, okay, from the actual dam, which is this rock line to the left here. That's about 118 to 120 feet, okay, from taking into account any boil if we were here, standing here on August, okay. All this would be underwater, of course, because the river was at about 2.2, 2.3 feet, okay. So keep that in mind. The anglers were beached, more or less, and you can see some of these videos on YouTube that were released, just above the tip of that island over there, because all that rock up there was underwater, but the island, little grass right there, okay, right there, wasn't underwater, okay? And that's where 3 of the kayak anglers had positioned their boats casting up towards the dam, Okay, so they were not within 100 feet of the dam. Now, reportedly, the angler who submitted the photograph, okay, that originally caused all this situation, that allegedly and reportedly was then provided the Kayak Adventure Series and then submitted to the law enforcement, that angler was positioned over here in this pocket right here, okay? And so we're going to walk to that pocket and we're going to kind of see what that angler thinks he saw, okay? And whether or not we can judge based on that, whether or not we believe someone could have been fishing within 100 feet of the dam. Mind you, I am right now going to be adjacent, equidistant to where that stake is, okay? That helps local anglers and people that fish up here, mostly boaters and people like that when the river is up, you know, somewhat kind of identify, you know, where things are at, okay? It's just a line of sight kind of a thing that people use in the middle. You've got to be in the middle to see it at the third crown, okay? So it's a little ways out there. So we're walking back here towards, if you follow this path, you're going to end up at the access area, okay, where people launch from. Okay, so this is going to start the pocket right here where the angler was, reportedly, who took the picture on this side of the island. See the island that's right there? You'll better picture of that right there. See that island that's right there? He had positioned his kayak here in this pocket right here between the bank and that island. And I'm going to get to this little point. There's a little point here. Okay. Here's another thing what I'm talking about. There's also some cutouts that mark, most people don't know this, okay? But there's some cutouts that mark distance. There's one right there, okay? There's the other one right there that I just walked back, okay? That mark how many distance this is. And if you look at these markings, you can freaking know how far you are from the dam, okay? Not so sure anybody investigated that when they started all this, but they should have, okay? Anyone who's ever fished up here in Pennsylvania knows this, okay? So we're at the area where the person was who took the photograph that went viral on Facebook, and was shared by multiple people making claims as to who the anglers were, and oftentimes identifying wrongly, and all you would have to do is be able to look at someone's kayak, be able to look at someone's PFD, be able to look at, you know, all those things to know that who's who and what's up. But just to give you an idea, if you're in this pocket and you're taking a video or a photograph, you're facing up towards the dam, okay? The only way from this area where you could get the photographs that were posted on Facebook is if you used a zoom. If you zoomed out to 5x, okay? It's the only way. If you look at those photographs on Facebook that were used to basically malign those anglers, you can tell that they're not, you know, normal photos. They were actually zoomed. And I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to show you. And this, if you remember the photo on Facebook, look what's going to happen. I can push that out to 5x, okay? And that's exactly what you see in that picture from this location. And this is the location confirmed by witnesses where the individual who took the photograph was fishing, okay? And so that's how you know, okay? Because it doesn't matter what the water level is, okay? What matters is that's where the dam is. That's where that crown is, and that's where that crown is, okay? And again, this is normal setting, okay? Distance, and then zoom to at least 5x on a camera, which is, see how close that Fabridam looks in the photo? And then if an angler was between me and that dam right now, he would look as if he was a lot closer to that dam than he actually really was. And that's the problem, okay? So the photograph has to be authenticated. It has to be demonstrated from its exfil data, okay, where that person was standing like I am today. When I save this video to my phone, it's going to save exactly where I'm standing GPS, okay? And so when you juxtapose that with, okay, that individual was beached or on the side of the bank or in the water taking that photo, where's that GPS location in relationship to the dam? And that's how you know that the camera photo was zoomed in, okay? And so now we're going to walk down here towards, if you continue walking down this path, you get to the access point, which is probably like 100 yards or so down here, which allows you to launch. And most people launch there and come up here and fish. And you can get an idea here, you know, what the water levels are like. You can go back and look at some photos or some videos from August, and you can see that really all this rock right here was underwater. All this rock was underwater. The rocks in the middle were underwater until you get to about this portion of the island. Okay, and the anglers, 9 anglers by the way, fishing up towards the Fabridam on that event weekend, in large part fishing on this side of the fourth crown. The fourth crown, of course, is where they have deflated the Fabridam right there. Okay, and you can see they deflated it, and you can still see there's obviously a little boil right there, right, but not much. Okay, but you've got to remember the anglers were up to the end of this island, which was underwater. Okay, this island itself, and at that point, are well beyond 100 feet from the dam. And even if that rock line extended, if you go out to right there, and you range finder that rock right there that sticks up right there, it is 148 feet, okay? 148 feet from the dam, and the anglers were behind that, which means they're closer to where I'm standing going downriver than they were towards the dam in question, okay? And you can verify that also. Any tournament director who has GPS fish emissions that entered fish, multiple events were going on that weekend. There was PA Bass Nation, Keystone, Slay Nation, Native, Smallie Chaser River Bassin, Kayak Adventure Series. There were multiple events going on that weekend. And so any of those tournament directors, if they have, want to deep dive into the real, just look at the GPS locations, longitude and latitude of the anglers that were fishing up here at the Fabridam, and you'll find that none of those anglers who submitted fish were in illegal locations at the time they submitted fish. That opens a question as to whether or not, that doesn't mean that someone didn't get close to the dam. I've gotten that question posed to me a lot, and it's like, right, but you don't have any verifiable evidence backed up by any other supporting documentation regarding that. That's a judgment call based on what is a camera apt-oriented zoom photograph that someone has to make. And just keep in mind that these anglers were never interviewed. These anglers were never interviewed by law enforcement. These anglers were never interviewed by the tournament series that disqualified them, okay? Think about that. They were not even given the normal treatment that's provided to anglers in events. They were not given a protest hearing. They were not given the ability to appeal, okay? And all of this would have been presented along with GoPro footage, along with potentially drone footage, along with potentially other anglers who have sent me video documentation that will be provided in court, in defense of any ticket or citation. I believe that court date is scheduled for October 21st. And so all that evidence is going to come into play in the court. And again, it's going to be a third party, independent party making the decision, based on what they know about this area and based on the evidence and based on the testimony of eyewitnesses. And whether or not there's any supporting evidence to support the claim made by the angler who submitted the photo. Remember, that photo was not only submitted to Kayak Adventure Series, which was a complete breach of ethics for any event that I'm familiar with, in that that angler who took that photo sent it to multiple anglers fishing the event. That is a violation of the Sportsmanship Code of Conduct, okay? And nothing was done. And not only the individuals that he shared that video, shared that image to, they then were also competing in the event, both Native event, PA Bass Nation event, Kayak Adventure Series event, okay? They then posted that photo during the event weekend on social media, okay? Claiming that the individuals up at the dam were cheating. That's a violation of the Sportsmanship Code of Conduct, and they should have been held accountable by Bassmaster. One in particular should have been held accountable by Bassmaster because PA Bass Nation is part of Bassmaster, okay? They are part of Bassmaster, so as in BASS. So that person violated the Sportsmanship Code of Conduct of Bass Nation, and he should not have been allowed to fish in the last Bassmaster Open Kayak Series event to qualify for the Bassmaster Kayak Championship in Knoxville, Tennessee in 2026. Okay, these are like serious things that the kayak community needs to address. Okay, and so this is it, man. This is the Sunbury Fabridam that everybody talked about going down. Just to give you a little perspective, it is way down, guys. It is, like I said, it is early fall, and you really get a better perspective as to what this area is really all about when you come here this time of year and you see all these the islands and the rock. Obviously in early August that was full of grass, and you know, these rocks right here in front were underwater. Okay, the water, like I said, was between 2.2 and 2.4. Okay, the river obviously is way down now, and then of course on the other side you'll find the fish ladder, which really didn't come into play you know, in terms of the anglers fishing the event series, although there was one angler, I believe there was one image posted on social media of an angler fishing close to the Fabridam. However, that image as well has been determined to have been zoomed and used on a camera app, so there's really no idea of really being able to gauge what level of distance anybody really was from the dam. It's going to come down to what other supporting evidence anyone can offer. Eyewitness testimony, GPS location, drone footage, camera footage from Sunbury. Okay, Sunbury just put in 24 cameras in town, all along the water and in town, through some redevelopment. So there's opportunities here to get to the bottom of it, and hopefully that's what's going to happen here coming up in the next few weeks. And we'll get some resolution in this matter, and you know, this is a teachable moment for folks. And open up the discussions this fall and into winter, whether or not we want to even allow dam fishing or not. You know, it's a prominent place for people to go fishing in summertime on the Susquehanna, Upper Potomac, and rivers, and James river systems like that. And so it's going to be really interesting to see what these tournaments do in terms of these dams, especially on the Susquehanna River next year, and whether or not they want to worry about these issues coming up, or whether or not anglers just need to take the responsibility and inform their other anglers and make everybody aware at the access ramp about the 100-foot rule and law. It's a state law, obviously, in Pennsylvania, but also the stake that's out by the fourth column, the fourth crown, that really starts the warning of, hey, you're about to enter in an unsafe zone, no matter what the boil is. You know, and like I said, people have been fishing at this dam forever, and really since, you know, the new fish ladder came into play. You know, I guess a couple years ago, it's drawn a lot more attention here. I mean, this whole area down here below the ladder and all that really goes by, it's not really a lake, it's referred to Lake Augusta. Some folks may be familiar with the lawsuit that happened with the motorboat a couple years ago that was thrown out by the court because law enforcement tried to claim that Lake Augusta was an actual lake. It's really not a lake based on state law and based on the codes of what it is. It's the Susquehanna River. You can make the argument whether it's an impoundment or not, but courts decided that it wasn't a real lake, and they threw that case out. So we'll see what happens with this case coming up for these anglers that reportedly, you know, like I said, they were reportedly ticketed on the weekend, but we later dug deep and found out that they actually were never really written a ticket until a week after Labor Day. The week after Labor Day. So over a month, almost a month later, the officer got around to actually writing the ticket, which is kind of scary if you think about it, because all the tournaments had already made their decision regarding payouts and winnings and all that stuff, and DQs and bans and everything that you can think about. They already made that decision early August, even before these anglers even had an opportunity. You got to remember, their day in court is really their only opportunity to be able to defend themselves, because the Kayak Adventure Series, the PA Bass Nation, Native, Slay Nation, and Keystone reportedly never allowed a protest or an appeal for their disqualifications. So just keep that in mind. I'll keep you posted. But I just wanted to show you guys and give everybody here, because I've been doing some videos on this, and a lot of people have always asked me questions about this dam. So I thought I'd pop over and get you a nice little fall video here of the dam and give you some perspective when you see these enhanced, altered photographs on social media. Okay? Hopefully, you know, from everybody, from their perspective, from the people who believe those anglers violated the law, hopefully they're going to show up to court, you know, and I mean, and make their case. You know, if they believe in it that much, if they actually, you know, believe in what they did, or there's a potential that they never expected the tournament director to turn the actual photograph over to law enforcement. This has happened quite a bit in tournaments here on the Susquehanna River, where people have intentionally tried to get anglers disqualified. A lot of times, the protests get thrown out. This particular time, it did not get thrown out, and maybe, just maybe, those anglers, you know, believed it would just go to the tournament director and that's it, and they never had any intention of it going to law enforcement. Well, we're going to find out in court whether or not those anglers are coming to court to make the case that these anglers violated the law or not. So that's all I got. Hope everybody enjoyed this video. Again, Fabridam, Sunbury, Pennsylvania, Susquehanna River, early fall.